A number of years ago, at a point in my own journey when I felt more lost than ever, I heard a talk given by Gordon Dalby, who had just written Healing the Masculine Soul. He raised the idea that despite a man's past and the failures of his own father to initiate him, God could take him on that journey, provide what was missing. A hope rose within me, but I dismissed it with the cynicism I'd learned to use to keep down most things in my soul. Several weeks, perhaps months later, I was downstairs in the early morning to read and pray. As with so many of my quiet times, I ended up looking out the window toward the east to watch the sunrise. I heard Jesus whisper a question to me. Will you let me initiate you? Before my mind ever had a chance to process, dissect, and doubt the whole exchange, my heart leaped up and said yes. Who can give a man this, his own name? George MacDonald asks. God alone, for no one but God sees what the man is. He reflects upon the white stone that Revelation includes among the rewards God will give to those who overcome. On that white stone there is a new name. It is new only in the sense that it is not the name the world gave to us, certainly not the one delivered with the wound. No man will find on that stone Mama's Boy or Fatty or Seagull. But the new name is really not new at all when you understand that it is your true name, the one that belongs to you, that being whom he had in his thought when he began to make the child, and whom he kept in his thought throughout the long process of creation and redemption. Psalm 139 makes it clear that we were personally, uniquely planned and created, knit together in our mother's womb by God himself. He had someone in mind, and that someone has a name. That someone has also undergone a terrible assault, and yet God remains committed to the realization of that same someone. The giving of the white stone makes it clear that is what he is up to. The history of a man's relationship with God is the story of how God calls him out, takes him on a journey, and gives him his true name. Most of us have thought it was the story of how God sits on his throne, waiting to whack a man broadside when he steps out of line. Not so. He created Adam for adventure, battle, and beauty. He created us for a unique place in his story and is committed to bringing us back to the original design. So God calls Abram out of Ur of the Chaldees to a land he has never seen, to the frontier, and along the way, Abram gets a new name. He becomes Abraham. God takes Jacob off into Mesopotamia somewhere to learn things he has to learn and cannot learn at his mother's side. When he rides back into town, he has a limp and a new name as well. Even if your father did his job, he can only take you part way. There comes a time when you have to leave all that is familiar and go into the unknown with God. Saul was a guy who really thought he understood the story and very much liked the part he had written for himself. He was the hero of his own little mini-series, Saul the Avenger. After that little matter on the Damascus Road, he becomes Paul. And rather than heading back into all the old and familiar ways, he is led out into Arabia for 3 years to learn directly from God. Jesus shows that initiation can happen even when we've lost our father or grandfather. He's the carpenter's son, which means Joseph was able to help him in the early days of his journey. But when we meet the young man, Jesus, Joseph is out of the picture. Jesus has a new teacher, his true father, and it is from him he must learn who he really is and what he's really made of. Initiation involves a journey and a series of tests through which we discover our real name and our true place in the story. Robert Ruark's book, The Old Man and the Boy, is a classic example of this kind of relationship. There's a boy who needs a lot of teaching, and there's an old man who's got a lot of wisdom. But the initiation doesn't take place at a school desk. It takes place in the field, where simple lessons about the land and animals and seasons turn into larger lessons about life and self and God. Through each test comes a revelation. The boy must keep his eyes open and ask the right questions. Learning to hunt quail helps you learn about yourself. He's smart as a whip, and every time you go up against him, you're proving something about yourself. Most of us have been misinterpreting life and what God is doing for a long time. I think I'm just trying to get God to make my life work easier, a client of mine confessed. But he could have been speaking for most of us. We're asking the wrong questions. Most of us are asking, God, why did you let this happen to me? Or, God, why don't you just fill in the blank, help me succeed, get my kids straightened out, fix my marriage. You know what you've been whining about. But to enter into a journey of initiation with God requires a new set of questions. What are you trying to teach me here? What issues in my heart are you trying to raise through this? What is it you want me to see? What are you asking me to let go of? In truth, God has been trying to initiate you for a long time. What is in the way is how you've mishandled your wound and the life you've constructed as a result. Men are taught over and over when they are boys that a wound that hurts is shameful, notes Bly. A wound that stops you from continuing to play is a girlish wound. He who is truly a man keeps walking, dragging his guts behind. Like a man who's broken his leg in a marathon, he finishes the race even if he has to crawl, and he doesn't say a word about it. That sort of misunderstanding is why, for most of us, our wound is an immense source of shame. A man's not supposed to get hurt. He's certainly not supposed to let it really matter. We've seen too many movies where the good guy takes an arrow, just breaks it off and keeps on fighting. Or maybe he gets shot, but is still able to leap across a canyon and get the bad guys. And so most men minimize their wound. It's not a big deal. Lots of people get hurt when they're young. I'm okay. King David, a guy who's hardly a pushover, doesn't act like that at all. I am poor and needy, he confesses openly, and my heart is wounded within me. Psalm 109:22. Or perhaps they'll admit it happened, but deny it was a wound because they deserved it. After many months of counseling together about his wound, his vow, and how it was impossible to get the answer from women, I asked David a simple question. What would it take to convince you that you are a man? Nothing, he said. Nothing can convince me. We sat in silence as tears ran down my cheeks. You've embraced the wound, haven't you, Dave? You've owned its message as final. You think your father was right about you. Yes, he said, without any sign of emotion at all. I went home and wept. For Dave, and for so many other men I know, and for myself, because I realized that I, too, had embraced my wound, and ever since, just tried to get on with life. Suck it up, as the saying goes. The only thing more tragic than the tragedy that happens to us is the way we handle it. God is fiercely committed to you, to the restoration and release of your masculine heart. But a wound that goes unacknowledged and unwept is a wound that cannot heal. A wound you've embraced is a wound that cannot heal. A wound you think you deserved is a wound that you cannot heal. That is why Brennan Manning says, the spiritual life begins with the acceptance of our wounded self. Really? How can that be? The reason is simple. Whatever is denied cannot be healed. But that's the problem, you see. Most men deny their wound, deny that it happened, deny that it hurt, certainly deny that it's shaping the way they live today. And so, God's initiation of a man must take a very cunning course, a course that feels very odd, even cruel. He will wound us in the very place where we have been wounded. From the place of our woundedness, we construct a false self. We find a few gifts that work for us, and we try to live off them. Stuart found he was good at math and science. He shut down his heart and spent all his energies perfecting his Spock persona. There, in the academy, he was safe. He was also recognized and rewarded. Alex was good at sports and the whole macho image. He became a glass-eating animal. Stan became the nicest guy you could ever meet. In the story of my life, he admitted, I want to be seen as the nice guy. I became a hard-charging perfectionist. There, in my perfection, I found safety and recognition. When I was 8, confesses Brennan Manning, the imposter or false self was born as a defense against pain. The imposter within whispered, Brennan, don't ever be your real self anymore because nobody likes you as you are. Invent a new self that everybody will admire and nobody will know. Notice the key phrase, as a defense against pain, as a way of saving himself. The imposter is our plan for salvation. So God must take it all away. This often happens at the start of our initiation journey. He thwarts our plan for salvation. He shatters the false self. In the last chapter, I told you of Brad's plan for self-redemption. He would belong to the inside group. Even after it failed him time and again, breaking his heart over and over, he wouldn't give it up. He simply thought his aim was off. If he found the right group, then his plan would work. Our plan for redemption is hard to let go of. It clings to our hearts like an octopus. So what did God do for Brad? He took it all away. God brought Brad to the point where he thought he had found the group, and then God prevented him from maneuvering his way in. Brad wrote me a letter to describe what he was going through. God has taken all that away, stripped me of all the things I used to earn people's admiration. I knew what he was up to. He put me in a place where my heart's deepest wounds and arrows and sin came out. As I was weeping, all these pictures of what I want to belong to came up. Speaker, counselor, in a group. And it was as if Jesus asked me to give them up. What came from my heart was surprising, incredible fear. And then the image of never getting them. A sentence arose in my heart. You want me to die. If I give up those, I'll never belong and be somebody. You're asking me to die. It has been my hope of salvation. Why would God do something so cruel? Why would he do something so terrible as to wound us in the place of our deepest wound? Jesus warned us that whoever wants to save his life will lose it. Christ is not using the word bios here. He's not talking about our physical life. The passage is not about trying to save your skin by ducking martyrdom or something like that. The word Christ uses for life is the word psyche, the word for our soul, our inner self, our heart. He says that the things we do to save our psyche, our self, those plans to save and protect our inner life, those are the things that will actually destroy us. There's a way that seems right to a man, but in the end it leads to death, says Proverbs 16:25. The false self, our plan for redemption, seems so right to us. It shields us from pain and secures us a little love and admiration. But the false self is a lie. The whole plan is built on pretense. It's a deadly trap. God loves us too much to leave us there, so he thwarts us in many, many different ways. In order to take a man into his wound, so that he can heal it and begin the release of the true self, God will thwart the false self. He will take away all you've leaned upon to bring you life. In the movie The Natural, Robert Redford is a baseball player named Roy Hobbs, perhaps the most gifted baseball player ever. He's a high school wonder boy, a natural who gets a shot at the big leagues. But his dreams of a professional career are cut short when Hobbs is wrongly sentenced to prison for murder. Years later, an aging Hobbs gets a second chance. He's signed by the New York Knights, the worst team in the league. But through his incredible gift, untarnished by the years, Hobbs leads the Knights from ignominy to the playoff game for the National League pennant. He rallies the team, becomes the center of their hopes and dreams. The climax of the film is the game for the championship. It's the bottom of the ninth. The score is Pittsburgh 2, Knights 0. The Knights have 2 outs. There's a man on first and third when Hobbs steps up to the plate. He's their only chance. This is his moment. Now, there's something you must know, something absolutely crucial to the story. Ever since his high school days, Hobbs has played with a bat he made himself from the heart of a tree felled by lightning in his front yard. Burned into the bat is a lightning bolt and the words, Wonder Boy. The bat is the symbol of his greatness, his giftedness. He has never, ever played with another. Clutching Wonder Boy, Hobbs steps up to the plate. His first swing is a miss. His second is a foul ball, high and behind. His third is a solid hit along the first base line. It looks like a home run, but it also lands foul. As Hobbs returns to the plate, he sees his bat lying there, in pieces. It shattered on that last swing. This is the critical moment in a man's life, when all he has counted on comes crashing down, when his golden bat breaks into pieces. His investments fail, his company lets him go, the church fires him, he is leveled by an illness, his wife walks out, his daughter turns up pregnant. What is he to do? Will he stay in the game? Will he shrink back to the dugout? Will he scramble to try to put things back together as so many men do? The true test of a man, the beginning of his redemption, actually starts when he can no longer rely on what he's used all his life. The real journey begins when the false self fails. A moment that seems like an eternity passes as Hobbs stands there, holding the broken pieces, surveying the damage. The bat is beyond repair. Then he says to the bat boy, "Go pick me out a winner, Bobby." He stays in the game and hits a home run to win the series. God will take away our bat as well. He will do something to thwart the false self. Stewart saved himself by becoming emotionless. Last year, His wife walked out on him. She's had it with his two-dimensional existence. What woman wants to be married to Spock? Alex recently suffered a series of panic attacks that left him almost unable to leave his home. The whole macho construct fell to the ground. At first, nobody could believe it. Alex couldn't believe it. He was invincible, the strongest guy you ever met. But it was all built as a defense against the wound. Our loss doesn't necessarily have to be something so dramatic. A man may simply awaken one day to find himself lost as Dante described himself. In the middle of the road of my life, I awoke in a dark wood, where the true way was wholly lost. This was the turning point in my life. I went to Washington, D.C. as a young man to try to make something of myself, to prove something, establish credibility. The damnable thing about it was, I succeeded. My giftedness worked against me by coming through for me. I was recognized and rewarded. But the whole experience felt like an act of survival. Not something flowing out of a deep center, but something I had to prove, overcome, grasp. As Manning said of his own imposter, I studied hard, scored excellent grades, won a scholarship in high school, and was stalked every waking morning by the terror of abandonment and the sense that nobody was there for me. At the end of 2 years, I woke one morning and realized I hated my life. George MacDonald says, in Diary of an Old Soul, "How many helps thou givest to those who would learn. To some sore pain, to others a sinking heart, to some a weariness worse than any smart, to some a haunting, fearing, blind concern, madness to some the shaking dart, of hideous death still following as they turn, to some a hunger that will not depart, to some thou givest a deep unrest, a scorn of all they are or see upon the earth, a gaze at dusky night and clearing morn, as on a land of emptiness and dearth. To some a bitter sorrow, to some the sting of love misprized, of sick abandoning. To some a frozen heart, oh worse than anything. The messengers of Satan think to mar, but make, driving the soul from false to feel, to thee the reconciler, the one real, in whom alone the would-be and the is are met." This is a very dangerous moment, when God seems set against everything that has meant life to us. Satan spies his opportunity and leaps to accuse God in our hearts. You see, he says, God is angry with you. He's disappointed in you. If he loved you, he would make things smoother. He's not out for your best, you know. The enemy always tempts us back toward control, to recover and rebuild the false self. We must remember that it is out of love that God thwarts our impostor. As Hebrews reminds us, it is the Son whom God disciplines. Therefore, do not lose heart. God thwarts us to save us. We think it will destroy us, but the opposite is true. We must be saved from what really will destroy us. If we would walk with him in our journey of masculine initiation, we must walk away from the false self. Set it down, give it up willingly. It feels crazy. It feels immensely vulnerable. Brad has stopped looking for the group. Stuart has begun to open up his heart to emotion, to relationship, to all that he buried so long ago. Alex stopped eating glass, stopped the whole macho thing to face what he has never faced inside. I gave up perfectionism, left Washington, and went looking for my heart. We simply accept the invitation to leave all that we've relied on and venture out with God. We can choose to do it ourselves, or we can wait for God to bring it all down. If you have no clue as to what your false self may be, then a starting point would be to ask those you live with and work with, what is my effect on you? What am I like to live with or work with? What don't you feel free to bring up with me? If you never, ever say a word in a meeting because you fear you might say something stupid, well, then it's time to speak up. If all you ever do is dominate a meeting because your sense of worth comes from being in charge, then you need to shut up for a while. If you run to sports because you feel best about yourself there, then it's probably time to give it a rest and stay home with your family. If you never play any game with other men, then it's time you go down to the gym with the guys and play some hoops. In other words, you face your fears head on. Drop the fig leaf. Come out of hiding. For how long? Longer than you want to. Long enough to raise the deeper issues. Let the wound surface from beneath it all. Losing the false self is painful. Though it's a mask, it's one we've worn for years, and losing it can feel like losing a close friend. Underneath the mask is all the hurt and fear we've been running from, hiding from. To let it come to the surface can shake us like an earthquake. Brad felt as if he was going to die. You may too. Or you may feel like Andy Gullahorn, who wrote the song Steel Bars from Old Hat. This is how it feels at the rock bottom of despair, when the house I built comes crashing down. And this is how it feels when I know the man that I say I am is not the man that I am when no one's around. But this is not the end of the road, it's the trailhead. What you are journeying towards is freedom, healing, and authenticity. Listen to the next part of Andy's song. This is how it feels to come alive again and start fighting back to gain control. And this is how it feels to let freedom in and break the chains that enslave my soul. As we walk away from the self, we will feel vulnerable and exposed. We will be sorely tempted to turn to our comforters for some relief, those places that we found solace and rest. Because so many of us turn to the woman for our sense of masculinity, we must walk away from her as well. I do not mean leave your wife. I mean you stop looking to her to validate you. Stop trying to make her come through for you. Stop trying to get your answer from her. For some men, this may mean disappointing her. If you've been a passive man, tiptoeing around your wife for years, never doing anything to rock the boat, then it's time to rock it. Stand up to her. Get her mad at you. For those of you violent men, including achievers, it means stop abusing her. You release her as the object of your anger because you release her as the one who was supposed to make you a man. Repentance for a driven man means you become kind. Both types are still going to the woman. Repentance depends on which way you've approached her. But I have counseled many young men to break up with the woman they were dating because they had made her their life. She was the sun of his universe around which he orbited. A man needs a much bigger orbit than a woman. He needs a mission, a life purpose, and he needs to know his name. Only then is he fit for a woman, for only then does he have something to invite her into. A friend tells me that in the Maasai tribe in Africa, a young man cannot court a woman until he has killed a lion. That's their way of saying until he has been initiated. I've seen far too many young men commit a kind of emotional promiscuity with a young woman. He will pursue her, not to offer his strength, but to drink from her beauty, to be affirmed by her, and to feel like a man. They will share deep, intimate conversations, but he will not commit. He is unable to commit. This is very unfair to the young lady. After a year of this sort of relationship, a dear friend said, I never felt secure in what I meant to him. When we feel the pull toward the golden-haired woman, we must recognize that something deeper is at play. As Bly says, what does it mean when a man falls in love with a radiant face across the room? It may mean that he has some soul work to do. His soul is the issue. Instead of pursuing the woman and trying to get her alone, he needs to go alone himself, perhaps to a mountain cabin for 3 months, write poetry, canoe down a river, and dream. That would save some women a lot of trouble. Again, this is not permission to divorce. A man who has married a woman has made her a solemn pledge. He can never heal his wound by delivering another to the one he promised to love. Sometimes she will leave him. That is another story. Too many men run after her, begging her not to go. If she has to go, it is probably because you have some soul work to do. What I am saying is that the masculine journey always takes a man away from the woman in order that he may come back to her with his question answered. A man does not go to a woman to get his strength. He goes to her to offer it. You do not need the woman for you to become a great man. And as a great man, you do not need the woman. As Augustine said, let my soul praise you for all these beauties, but let it not attach itself to them by the trap of love. The trap of addiction because we've taken our soul to her for validation. But there is an even deeper issue than our question. What else is it we are seeking from the woman with the golden hair? What is that ache we are trying to assuage with her? Mercy, comfort, beauty, ecstasy. In a word, God. I'm serious. What we are looking for is God. There was a time when Adam drank deeply from the source of all love. He, our first father and archetype, lived in an unbroken communion with the most captivating, beautiful, and intoxicating source of life in the universe. Adam had God. True, it was not good for man to be alone, and God in his humility gave us Eve, allowed us to need her as well. But something happened at the fall. Something shifted. Eve took the place of God in a man's life. Let me explain. Adam was not deceived by the serpent. Did you know that? Paul makes it clear in 1 Timothy 2:14. Adam did not fall because he was deceived. His sin was different. In some ways, it was more serious in that he did it with open eyes. We do not know how long it lasted, but there was a moment in Eden when Eve was fallen and Adam was not. She had eaten, but he yet had a choice. I believe something took place in his heart that went like this. I have lost my Ezer Kenegdo, my soulmate, the most vital companion I've known. I do not know what life will be like, but I know I cannot live without her. Adam chose Eve over God. If you think I exaggerate, simply look around. Look at all the art, poetry, music, drama devoted to the beautiful woman. Listen to the language men use to describe her. Watch the powerful obsession at work. What else can this be but worship? Men come into the world without the God who was our deepest joy, our ecstasy. Aching for we know not what, we meet Eve's daughters, and we are history. She is the closest thing we've ever encountered, the pinnacle of creation, the very embodiment of God's beauty and mystery and tenderness and allure. And what goes out to her is not just our longing for Eve, but our longing for God as well. A man without his true love, his life, his God, will find another. What better substitute than Eve's daughters? Nothing else in creation even comes close. To a young man who had never been without a girlfriend since the 8th grade, I gave the advice that he should break up, call off all dating for 1 year. From the look on his face, you'd have thought I told him to cut off his arm, or something worse. Do you see what is at work here? Notice that the struggle with pornography or masturbation is most difficult when you are lonely or beat up or longing for comfort in some way. This will become more intense as you get closer to your wound. The longing for the ache to go away and the pull toward other comforters can seem overwhelming. I've watched it in many men. I know it in myself. But if this is the water you are truly thirsty for, then why do you remain thirsty after you've had a drink? It's the wrong well. We must reverse Adam's choice. We must choose God over Eve. We must take our ache to Him. For only in God will we find the healing of our wound. Chapter 7. Healing the Wound. Desperado, why don't you come to your senses? You've been out riding fences for so long now. Oh, you're a hard one, but I know that you got your reasons. You better let somebody love you before it's too late. The Eagles, from Desperado. The task of healing is to respect oneself as a creature, no more and no less. Wendell Berry. The deepest desire of our hearts is for union with God. God created us for union with Himself. This is the original purpose of our lives. Brennan Manning. I think I've given you the wrong impression of my life with my sons. Rock climbing, canoeing, wrestling, our quest for danger and destruction. You might get the impression we're a sort of military academy of the backwoods or one of those militia cults. So let me tell you of my favorite event of the day. It comes late in the evening, at bedtime, after the boys have brushed their teeth and we've said our family prayers. As I'm tucking them in, one of my boys will ask, "Dad, can we snuggle tonight?" Snuggle time is when I'll cuddle up next to one of them on a bed that's not really big enough for both of us. And that's the point, to get very close. And there in the dark, we'll just sort of talk. Usually we start laughing and then we have to whisper because the others will ask us to keep it down in there. Sometimes it breaks into tickling, other times it's a chance for them to ask some serious questions about life. But whatever happens, what matters most is what's going on beneath all that. Intimacy, closeness, connection. Yes, my boys want me to guide them into adventure, and they love to test their strength against mine. But all that takes place in the context of an intimate bond of love that is far deeper than words can express. What they want more than anything, what I love to offer them more than anything, is soul-to-soul oneness. As Tom Wolfe said, the deepest search in life, it seemed to me, the thing that in one way or another was central to all living, was man's search to find a father, not merely the father of his flesh, not merely the lost father of his youth, but the image of his strength and wisdom external to his need and superior to his hunger, to which the belief and power of his own life could be united. from the story of a novel. Guys are unanimously embarrassed by their emptiness and woundedness. It is, for most of us, a tremendous source of shame, as I've said. But it need not be. From the very beginning, back before the fall and the assault, ours was meant to be a desperately dependent existence. It's like a tree and its branches, explains Christ. You are the branches, I am the trunk. From me you draw your life. That's how it was meant to be. In fact, he goes on to say, apart from me, you can do nothing. John 15:5. He's not berating us or mocking us or even saying it with a sigh, all the while thinking, I wish they'd pull it together and stop needing me so much. Not at all. We are made to depend on God. We are made for union with Him, and nothing about us works right without it. As C.S. Lewis wrote, a car is made to run on gasoline, and it would not run properly on anything else. Now, God designed the human machine to run on Himself. He Himself is the fuel our spirits were designed to burn, or the food our spirits were designed to feed on. There is no other. This is where our sin and our culture have come together to keep us in bondage and brokenness, to prevent the healing of our wound. Our sin is that stubborn part inside that wants, above all else, to be independent. There's a part of us fiercely committed to living in a way where we do not have to depend on anyone, especially God. Then culture comes along with figures like John Wayne and James Bond and all those other real men. And the one thing they have in common is that they're loners. They don't need anyone. We come to believe deep in our hearts that needing anyone for anything is a sort of weakness, a handicap. This is why a man never, ever stops to ask for directions. I'm notorious for this. I know how to get there. I'll find my own way, thank you very much. Only when I am fully and finally and completely lost will I pull over and get some help, and I'll feel like a wimp for doing it. Jesus knew nothing of that. The man who never flinched to take on hypocrites and get in their face, the one who drove 100 men with a bundle of cords swung free, the master of wind and sea, lived in a desperate dependence on his Father. I assure you, the Son can do nothing by himself. He does only what he sees the Father doing. I live by the power of the living Father who sent me. The words I say are not my own, but my Father who lives in me does his work through me. This isn't a source of embarrassment to Christ. Quite the opposite. He brags about his relationship with his Father. He's happy to tell anyone who will listen, the Father and I are one. Why is this important? Because so many men I know live with a deep misunderstanding of Christianity. They look at it as a second chance to get their act together. They've been forgiven, now they see it as their job to get with the program. They're trying to finish the marathon with a broken leg. But follow this closely. You'll recall that masculinity is an essence that is passed from father to son. That is a picture, as so many things in life are, of a deeper reality. The true essence of strength is passed to us from God through our union with Him. Notice what a deep and vital part of King David's life this is. Remembering that he is a man's man, a warrior for sure. Listen to how he describes his relationship to God in the Psalms. I love you, O Lord, my strength. But you, O Lord, be not far off. O my strength, come quickly to help me. O my strength, I watch for you. You, O God, are my fortress, my loving God. I dare say that David could take on John Wayne or James Bond any day. Yet this true man is unashamed to admit his desperate dependence on God. We know we are meant to embody strength. We know we are not what we were meant to be, and so we feel our brokenness as a source of shame. As we spoke of his wound recently, and how he needed to enter into it for healing, Dave protested, I don't even want to go there. It all feels so true. Men are typically quite harsh with the broken places within them. Many report feeling as though there is a boy inside, and they despise that about themselves. Quit being such a baby, they order themselves. But that is not how God feels. He is furious about what's happened to you. It would be better to be thrown into the sea with a large millstone tied around the neck than to face the punishment in store for harming one of these little ones. Luke 17:2. Think of how you would feel if the wounds you were given, the blows dealt to you, were dealt to a boy you loved, your son perhaps. Would you shame him for it? Would you feel scorn that he couldn't rise above it all? No, you'd feel compassion. As Gerald Manley Hopkins wrote, my own heart let me more have pity on. Let me live to my sad self hereafter kind. In the movie Good Will Hunting, there is a beautiful picture of what can happen when a man realizes he has owned his wound and discovers he doesn't have to. Will Hunting, played by Matt Damon, is a brilliant young man, a genius, who works as a janitor at MIT and lives in a rough part of town. No one knows about his gift because he hides it behind a false self of tough kid from the wrong side of the tracks. He's a fighter, a violent man. That false self was born out of a father wound. His original father he does not know, and the man who was his foster father would come home drunk and beat Will mercilessly. After he's arrested for getting into a brawl for the umpteenth time, Will is ordered by the court to see a psychologist, Sean, played by Robin Williams. They form a bond. For the first time in Will's life, an older man cares about him deeply. His initiation has begun. Toward the end of one of their last sessions, Sean and Will are talking about the beatings he endured, now recorded in his case file. Will. So, what is it like? Will has attachment disorder? Is it all that stuff? Fear of abandonment? Is that why I broke up with Skylar? Sean. I didn't know you had. I did. You want to talk about it? No. Hey, Will, I don't know a lot, but you see this? Holding his file. This is not your fault. Yeah, I know that. Look at me, son. It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. I know. No, you don't. It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. All right. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Don't mess with me, Sean. Not you. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Will collapses into his arms, weeping. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It is no shame that you need healing. It is no shame to look to another for strength. It is no shame that you feel young and afraid inside. It's not your fault. Frederick Buechner's father committed suicide when he was 10. He left a note to his mother. I adore and love you, and am no good. Give Freddie my watch. Give Jamie my pearl pin. I give you all my love. And then he sat in the garage while the running car filled it with carbon monoxide. It happened on a Saturday morning in the fall. He was to have taken Frederick and his brother to a football game that day. Instead, he took himself forever from their lives. What is a 10-year-old boy to do with such an event? Buechner says in The Sacred Journey, a child takes life as it comes because he has no other way of taking it. The world had come to an end that Saturday morning, but each time we had moved to another place, I had seen a world come to an end, and there had always been another world to replace it. When somebody you love dies, Mark Twain said, it is like when your house burns down. It isn't for years that you realize the full extent of your loss. For me, it was longer than for most, if indeed I have realized it fully even yet. And in the meantime, the loss came to get buried so deep in me that after a time I scarcely ever took it out to look at it at all, let alone speak of it. This is the way we are with our wound, especially men. We bury it deep and never take it out again. But take it out we must, or better, enter into it. I entered my wound through the surprising door of my anger. After we moved to Colorado, about 11 years ago, I found myself snapping at my boys for silly things. A spilled glass of milk would elicit a burst of rage. Whoa, John, I thought. There are things going on inside. You'd better have a look under the hood. As I explored my anger with the help of my dear friend, Brent, I realized I was so furious about feeling all alone in a world that constantly demanded more of me than I felt able to give. Something in me felt young, like a 10-year-old boy in a man's world, but without a man's ability to come through. There was much fear beneath the surface. Fear that I would fail, fear that I would be found out, and finally, fear that I was ultimately on my own. Where did all this fear come from, I wondered? Why do I feel so alone in the world, and so young inside? Why does something in my heart feel orphaned? My answer came through several movies. As I've written about in other places, I was blindsided by A River Runs Through It, because through its beautiful retelling of boys who never really had their father except through their fishing trips, and how in the end they lost even that, I realized I had lost my father, and like Beekner, the lost got buried so deep in me that after a time I scarcely ever took it out. I was pierced by a perfect world, because I saw there just how much a boy's father means to him, and how I longed for that intimacy with a source of strength who loved me and could tell me my name. I so identified with Will Hunting because I, too, was a fighter who saw myself as up against the rest of the world, and I had also accepted my wound and never grieved it. I thought it was my fault. In some ways, God had to sneak up on me through those stories because I wasn't willing to just skip happily down the path to my heart's deepest pain. We fight this part of the journey. The whole false self, our lifestyle, is an elaborate defense against entering our wounded heart. It is a chosen blindness. Our false self stubbornly blinds each of us to the light and the truth of our own emptiness and hollowness, says Manning. There are readers who even now have no idea what their wound is, or even what false self arose from it. How convenient that blindness is, blissful ignorance. But a wound unfelt is a wound unhealed. We must go in. The door may be your anger. It may be rejection that you've experienced, perhaps from a girl. It may be failure or the loss of the golden bat and the way that God is thwarting your false self. It may be a simple prayer. Jesus, take me into my wound. Behold, he says, I stand at the door and knock.
To continue, please insert the next CD.